Today's Sunday morning, the 19th of September. I'm sitting in my chicken coop, which is kind of typical when I get the opportunity. First thing I do in the morning, what is it? It's about 7 a.m. First thing I do in the morning, I let my chickens out. So I'm in my coop, getting ready to start the day. I typically spend a little time with them in the morning, just to make sure everybody's all right. I got some hens with babies and some other things, and so I'm inside, and this is part of it. Takes up the whole length of my property. It goes actually underneath down there. It goes underneath that coop and goes all the way back to the fence, and then over here is the where all the new birds are roosting up there. I built that last year, so now come on, guys, jeez. Oh, the pecking order. I got 3 babies that I call the orphans, because their mother died and they've been on their own since, and they get harassed constantly. So what did there's something, I wanted to address something, because I want to give people some hope. The current times we live in, I'm pretty doom and gloom for the most part. I have been for so long. It's just been part of my nature, but that's changed a lot. I'm not so doom and gloom anymore. There's Pinky, my Boston Terrier. In the current times we're living in, watching what's happening socially to not just our nation but around the world, and there's this crazy movement of being woke and cancel culture, and just that from a societal position, but our leadership, oh my God. You know what, I'm not gonna hide it. I mean, I was a Trump fan from the beginning, for one reason, because he was different. And as far as as an individual goes in pop culture, I was always aware of him. I didn't really, he was there. He'd be doing cameos in movies, and he'd be on talk shows from time to time. But I never bought his books. I never did any of that stuff. But I knew when that guy would get elected, and I knew he was going to get elected, he would throw everybody into a hissy fit. Why would somebody who gets elected cause a whole section of our world, not just our country, but our world, on end? Did you really believe the narrative that he was racist and he was this, that, and the other thing? Did you really believe that? I mean, he was in public eye for 40 years, and no one ever said he was racist till he decided to run for president. So I watched him and seen what he did, and I knew that this guy was going to overturn the apple cart. Well, that beside the point. Look what we got. Look what is going on now. Look who's in office. Look what he's doing. I'm sure you're watching the same stuff I do. You see the same thing. Do you really think that guy's got it together? Do you really think that guy is making the decisions? Come on, man. I had a 94-year-old uncle who was more my father than anything. Not 94, but he made it to 92. And I saw him cognitively decline, not so much because of his age, but because of long-term physical injury, not illness, but injury, and being incapacitated, being incapacitated for 10 months as an 88-year-old man near death, and you come back from it, you're not quite the same. He had more cognitive prowess than Biden has. I'm going to tell you right now. He wasn't able to move around a lot, but trust me, he had a sharp mind. This guy that is sitting in the presidential office, he is not well. Now, anybody that has dealt with Alzheimer's or dementia, we all know this. The American people cannot possibly accept the fact that this guy was elected. Do you really think that 80 million people voted for this guy? So as we watch this debacle unfold with Afghanistan and all the things that are happening, it's an end time. It's particularly for Christians. Everybody's looking at it as an end time scenario. The thing with the thing with the jib, really, it looks like a shadow of the mark of the beast. It sure does to me. I don't know about the rest of you, but the way they're playing the game, you have to get this or you can't buy, sell, and trade. I addressed that in a video or two back. I don't believe it is the mark, but it's a foreshadowing for sure, to see how much people were willing to accept. We are living in an unprecedented time. Now, here's where the hope comes in. I don't believe we're in the end times. We were in the end times. We were in the end times when Jesus arrived. Okay, 2,000 years ago. We're still in that time. But as far as it's my just personal belief, he has an eminent foot stepping back on the planet is not here yet, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, the gospel's got to be preached to every people group on the planet. Not every people group it's been reached. That's the number one thing. There's a few things that have to happen. The only way that God is going to get through to some of these people groups, particularly in the Middle East, is he actually makes a great and mighty move amongst Islam. That's the only way it's going to happen, because you can't get in there. There is a Christian movement in China that you don't hear about, and all those people groups have to be reached. There are things that have to happen first before the end's going to come. Now, having said that, I want to give people hope, because I know that there are things in play that most people aren't aware about that might cause some issues real soon. And I think everyone that calls themselves a Christian really better start, it's time to take your faith really seriously. Not this just, I'm going to church on Sunday and pretending I'm going to be a good person, or this. It's time to really check yourself and where you stand, because there is, I believe, going to be a really incredible move of God across the globe soon. That is going to be part of that whole, the glory of God filling the earth and reaching different people groups. I really believe that is coming. I also think that because the United States and Israel are so intertwined, you can't have one without the other. It's been like that for a long. It's been like that since Israel was formed as a nation in 48. And God doesn't go back on his covenants. And he made a covenant with Abraham. And it is very obvious. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. There's a reason the United States has been blessed as a wealthy nation for many, many years. And it's because of the friendship with Israel. The minute that goes away, we're in serious trouble. If our leadership decides to turn its back on Israel, despite what goes on there, you're going to see something happen. Then be worried about what's going to happen in this nation. Now, I don't this administration in here, I don't think is particularly friendly with Israel. And that's not a good thing. That doesn't bode anything good for us as a country at all. And despite the doom and gloom, I want people to take heart, because I think there is going to be an incredible movement that is going to happen. I think there's going to be an unprecedented revival, uh, with, all the crazy Christians waving their hands and speaking in tongues and all that other fun stuff. I think that this stuff is coming. Now, I can't say for sure, because that's a question of my faith, where I'm at. But I do believe that is happening. I believe it's coming. And there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to stop it. It's going to be like a runaway train. And people that are in the halls of government, I think some of them are aware of this. And those who serve the enemy, and trust me, there are people in that government, in our government, and governments around the world, that bow their knee. They bow their knee to Satan. There's people that worship God, and there's people that worship Satan. Don't think it's so far-fetched. Why is it so far-fetched for people to understand? You have these people that say they're atheists and they don't believe any of that. Don't believe any of that. It's nonsense. You have your run-of-the-mill fool who's an atheist, and they're so educated they're beyond everybody else. There's that guy. But there are ones that they pretend to that there's an almighty God, and they go around the world, but at the same time they're like a double agent. They're bowing their knee to an enemy in secret rituals and sacrificial. Go look up how many kids go missing in the United States every year. Do you really think all of that is human trafficking? Do you really believe that? You think that's all human trafficking? I mean, part of it is, but what do you think happens with some of these kids? What do you think happens to them? I've long suspected for a very long time that some of them end up on a sacrificial altar. I know it sounds crazy, and I've made videos about abortion. What do you think abortion's about? I mean, that is this child's sacrifice on the altar of self. It is a form of Baal worship, or Moloch, whatever you want to call it. But it is a form of it, regardless. Liberalism has tenets. Liberalism has tenets that they adhere to. They have a moral code. If you can't see it, I don't know what to tell you. Look, everything about God is love, but God is a worthless God if he's not just. God's got to be just. He has to be just. You can't have a God that's good and not be just. It's just the way it is. Now, I don't always come on to talk about religion and stuff, but I'm specifically talking to Christians. You got to check your faith. You got to see where you're at. You have to, if it's time. It's not time to play anymore. You got to get engaged. You got to get engaged. God didn't create you to sit around on the sidelines, and I've sat around on the sidelines. I'm going to admit it. But it's time to get engaged. It's time that we start standing up for something. The very least thing we can do is get involved in voting. We cannot check out of the culture. This is what happens when Christians check out of the culture. What's going on now is what happens when we basically say, I want nothing to do with politics. They're all wicked. They're all evil, and we ain't going to do anything about it. We can't do anything. We can't change anything. That's a big lie. That's a big lie. It's time to do something. At the very least, you can pray. God told me something a couple months ago. He said, you're more powerful than the people that sit in the Oval Office. And I said back to him, how is that? How could you say something like that? He says, you have access to me. And I think about that every day. Did God speak to me like that? Yes, he spoke to me like that. I didn't hear him whispering in my ear, but I heard him speak to me in that inner voice. Thoughts that weren't my thoughts, words that weren't my words. That was the farthest thing from my mind when that came up. And he's right. You're more powerful because you have access to him. None of your prayers hit the ground. If you're in the right place, I'm not talking if you're running around cheating on your wife and you're doing this and you're doing that. God doesn't. He won't lend an ear when you willfully are behaving like the world. You gotta separate yourself from that stuff. They don't hear you, but none of its stuff drops on the ground, and he will hear and listen. The very least thing you could do is pray for things that don't change. Pray for change. Pray for people that are in power, that are rightfully in power. Don't pray for people who have got ill-gotten gain power. It's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. You pray for people who are rightfully empowered by the rules and the laws that we have in place, regardless where you are in the world. You pray that their hearts change or whatever. You got to do that. But take heart, because I think that you're going to see some remarkable things happen that are going to be scary for a short period of time, a little maybe tumultuous. Personally, I would have some food on hand. I'm sitting on chicken feed right now. I'm sitting on bags of chicken feed because I'm thinking, okay, something might be coming. There might be a short period of time where there's a big disruption in the supply chain, which is kind of already happening. But in the end, it's going to be okay. And I don't think it's going to go on for years and years and years. It might be a short period of time of maybe 3 months at the most. But once again, I'm speculating. But don't think that the end is coming. Don't panic. Don't lose sleep. Get on your knees and pray. Thank God for every morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad of it. Use that and believe it. And take every day as a single day and walk in that. All right, that's 15 minutes of your time. I gotta get back to feeding these guys for the day, and hopefully I'll catch you another time. Till next time.